finger bobs. Yuffie lifts a finger, and a mouse is there.
For some reason, who knows why, people seem to come to me for advice when they've been cancelled, or when the rumour mill is targeting them and accusing them of things. And I guess you could say that I've had bitter experience with this sort of thing over nearly 10 years at this point. But I don't know that I'm entirely qualified to give you a huge amount of advice, because I certainly never took what would be my own advice a lot of the time, and sometimes you have to go against the advice for the sake of your own sanity. And I'm not actually coping particularly well at the moment, but maybe this would be useful to remind myself how I would advise others to cope, and then to apply that to myself, I suppose. The single most important thing when it comes to accusations and so on like this, whether you've been accused of, I don't know, being a Nazi, or a rape apologist, or whatever other ludicrous nonsense it happens to be, running a naughty web page that maybe you shouldn't have. It doesn't really matter what it is. The fundamental, most important thing that you can do is to react rapidly. You will make mistakes. You may even get yourself in deeper shit to one extent or another in trying to defend yourself. Even so, the absolute most important thing that you can do is get your side of the story out as early as possible. So these rumours, this nastiness, this cancel culture, this whole woke marketing shtick, and the way people target others in order to make themselves look better, it spreads. It spreads really fast. It spreads like the pox in a French brothel in the 1600s. It's quick. And any version of events that you put out is always going to be playing catch up, and it's also going to be less sexy than the accusation, and people won't get anything from standing up for you or presenting your version of events, right? They won't get any head pats, they won't get any kudos, they won't deflect attention from themselves. Quite the opposite. If they reshare your version of events, you're always going to be on the back foot. But even so, the single most fundamental important thing that you can do when you're accused of anything is to reply and put your side of things out there as quickly as possible. Even if it's unpolished, even if it's full of spelling errors, or even if it's slightly inconsistent, you can always revise it later, okay? But the fundamental, most important thing, over and above any other advice, is to get your side of things out there quick. You're always going to be on the back foot, right? Because you're always coming in after the accusations have been made. And accusations tend to be quite simple. That's the other thing that you're going to have problems with. Whereas reality is nuanced, it's shades of grey, there's subtlety to it, and we live in an age that doesn't recognise these facts. Everything is black and white. It's ironic that right and wrong should suddenly become a binary at the same time things like gender aren't. There's a lot of black and white thinking for people who otherwise think on a spectrum. It's what I'm driving at, not making a crack at any non-binary or trans people. It's just an observation. But yeah, see what I did there? I immediately explained myself. The other thing is, because accusations are so simple and easy and uncomplicated, if you are explaining yourself, explain yourself as you would to a child. Keep it very simple, keep it very unambiguous, make it graspable, because again, like with the timing, you're going to be on the back foot because reality tends to be complicated. Now, if you're anything like me, I don't like being condescending to people. It's usually an accident when I am, because I tend to prefer to treat people as intelligent and capable of being able to pass English and understand what I'm saying without me dumbing it down, and this has bitten me on the ass more times than I can count, and it's something I really need to get over, but it's something you need to consider, I think. When you're explaining yourself, when you're covering yourself, explain as you would to a child. Keep it very, very simple and straightforward, because the message against you is going to be very simple and very straightforward. It can be very isolating. It can really hurt your mental health to be accused of these things and to suddenly feel cast out, misunderstood, misrepresented, attacked, exiled, shunned. You know, this is cult behavior. Let's make no bones about it. And shunning is a really powerful social tool that a lot of cults use. So it's important to gather support, right? That your friends, your family, the people who are willing just to listen to your side of the story from the start. Gather those people close and cherish them and allow them to hold you up. I tend to be quite self-isolating. Maybe when you're attacked, you don't have the same vulnerabilities that I do because of depression and so on. But even so, you'll weather the storm better if you've got people who are willing to be honest and nice with you. And I say honest and nice because you don't want yes men, right? If you have done something wrong, you need to have people around you who are not afraid to tell you, but in gentle terms, not just pointing and screaming Nazi or rape apologist or whatever else it might be. And you still don't have to agree with them, even if they're your friends, but at this point, all you have to value is that people are willing to talk to you, willing to listen, willing to hear, and to try to understand your side and to present their side in a way that isn't just, stringing you up from the nearest metaphorical tree. So, yeah. Gather your friends. Keep your receipts. Show them. There's a certain paranoid sector of the internet that says always record. So when you're on a date or whatever else, keep all your text messages, keep all your private messages and so on, just in case you're accused of anything and you need to cover your ass. And the same thing applies here within creative culture. Keep the receipts. Make recordings where necessary and make sure you actually have those recordings and use those to back you up, right? As much as possible. Unfortunately, we live in a circumstance where people don't care about evidence or proof, but even so, that will win more people over to your side, those capable of being rational. And the people cancelling you are a very vocal minority and a lot of very scared hangers-on. So, yeah, but plus for your own peace of mind, right? In the teeth of the storm of accusations, you can begin to doubt yourself and wonder, well, did I do something wrong? And if you've got the receipts, if you've got the recordings that you can go back over, you can reassure yourself that you really didn't. If you can afford to, take it legal. Now this is happening more and more of late as cancel culture and so on gets out of hand. More and more people are creating, libel and slander suits as a result of these things, or trying to get a court ruling that backs them up rather than the people making the accusations. Will this actually help you in terms of reputation and so on? Probably not. In fact, some people see you defending yourself through the courts as being particularly cruel or bullying or vexatious lawsuits or whatever else. But if you can afford it, it enables you to punish the ringleader and make it less likely, perhaps, that people will go after anyone without having actual proof in the future. If you make it more costly. At the moment, it's extremely one-sided. Tippity-tap, one tweet from some idiot and your life is ruined. It's extremely one-sided. So if you can give them a taste of what they've done to you by using legal processes that actually have to use standards of evidence and so on, then I would say do it if you can afford to do it. There's no guarantee you'll win. Not every country has sane libel laws. In some places it's too loose, in other places it's too light, but there you go. You don't actually necessarily have to spend a great deal of money in order to get people off your back to one degree, or to strike back to some degree. People have twisted what happened, but during Gamergate I consulted with about 3 different legal firms about the mass essentially libel that was being done against people who were on blockbot lists, because some of these blockbot lists, they listed the alleged reason why you were on the block list, right, and had levels and degrees. You know, there was the Atheism Plus blockbot, I can't remember what it's actually called, and then there was the A Good Game Auto Blocker, which was Randy Harper. So they'll give me some pretty basic advice, which was that, well, there's not a lot you can do, but if you want to send them a sort of cease and desist letter, here are some form mails that you can send that will have legal backing. And if you did want to pursue, it's probably not worth pursuing in the main courts, but you could probably make a small claim against, I think it was Oolon, whatever his real name was, I forget now, and Randy Harper, and then that would have civil enforcement. So yeah, you could get some money back off them. I didn't particularly want to do that, but I did want to stop them slandering lots of people. So I sent a couple of letters, broadly mocked for doing so, but it did force them to better comply with data rules. It did inconvenience them in that it caused them to shift servers, change the language slightly, and remove some of the information that was publicly available. So all things considered, I'm going to take that as a win, because it forced change and it inconvenienced people who had been making lives hard for a lot of other people. So, you know, even if you don't have a lot of money, there's still certain things that you can do. Make a small claim if you have the legal standing to do so. You can usually get a bit of free legal advice from various solicitors and so on. It's not impossible, but make sure you get it from multiple sources, especially if you're dealing with stuff internationally, and then judge for yourself. Personally, I think that was worth it. Keep in mind this is coming from someone who does let it bother him, and who just had another relatively sleepless night due to being attacked by his own brain, casting doubts and so on. But try not to let it bother you too much. It's not that many people, and most people are just going to read the accusation, tut slightly, move on to the next article, and forget who you are. Right? It's just a handful of crazy people, bullies, nasty, horrible gobshites who are going to now dog you forever. So you better get used to it, and you better not let it bother you too much. So you have to accept what you can't change. You have to allow yourself to say, look, I did everything I could to present the truth as I see it, and if people aren't picking up on that, if people aren't understanding that, then ultimately the fault is them, especially if you've communicated clearly and exhaustively your side of whatever's happening, right? And if friends, co-workers, whoever else abandon you or cut you out of projects or whatever, you're not the one being a bastard there. They're supposed to be your friends, they're supposed to know you. If they cut you off because some rando accuses you of something, then the fault is theirs, not yours. Okay? You can explain yourself till you're blue in the face, and some people just aren't going to accept or understand where you're coming from. You're not the cunt whisperer. There's just no way of getting through to some people, and you have to accept that. And anyone who abandons you in the midst of all this, anyone who cuts you off for whatever reason, cuts you out of whatever work it might be, they are the ones being horrible bastards. Right? And even then you should retain some sympathy for them, because they don't want the horrible treatment that you're getting, and this cancel culture, this horribleness, this bullying. You wouldn't wish it on them, right? Some of them have families they've got to feed, you know, so be a little bit understanding that a PR nightmare is a PR nightmare, and some people can't afford to stand on principle. But the more of us that do, well, the better. All my videos are running too late lately, so let's try and wrap up pretty quickly. I talked about this kind of axiom I've developed, right? Which is the idea that at the end of the day, the only person you have to be able to live with is yourself. So long as you are straight and true to your moral principles, so long as you can live with whatever it is you've said, whatever it is you've done, if you've made apologies that satisfy you, if you have done anything wrong, that's all you can do, right? There are certain people you're never going to win over. There's certain people who are never going to understand, who are never going to pretend to not understand. But the only person you can't escape, the only person you have to be okay with, is yourself. So if you've got that, that is your foundation to build on and to find real meaningful friends, and so on. Now there is like one little appendix point that I would make here, okay? Some people do deserve to be cancelled. Some people genuinely have done something wrong. And after people have attacked you, the temptation is always going to be to stand up for others who are being put in the same situation as you, right? This is something I do. I go out of my way to signal boost people's side of the story when it comes to this. But I do that full knowing that it's going to cost me, and that they might be being disingenuous with me, right? But they still have a right of reply, or should have a right of reply. They deserve to have their case, their side of things understood, right? But sometimes you're going to run into someone where the evidence is actually there, and they're a horrible bastard. And in those rare few incidents, people do deserve to get some kind of blowback. Of course, usually it's not the people that really deserve it. But that's life. It is imperfect. Everyone fails. Nobody can live up to even their own standards all the time. So you got to be a little bit forgiving and a little bit understanding, and you got to try and let it go. And I know that's good advice because I'm completely unable to take it. Zang.
Don't comply. This is the end of nations' borders. These are the fears I'm trying to hide. This is horrible what happened today. See, I don't like the... I have, okay, like a lot of you, I hate a lot. You know? But I hate with style and creativity. Yeah!